The early morning sky over Earth was clear, but something was wrong. The faintest ripple of energy disturbed the air like the precursor to an oncoming storm. Earth's defense systems began picking up strange signals from deep space. The readings were erratic, a steady pulse that sent waves of confusion through the operators at the Central Command Center in Geneva. The data was being analyzed and reanalyzed, but there was no way to explain it. The source was too far, too alien. No one could figure out what they were dealing with. But one thing was certain, they were coming. The words from the intelligence officer were clipped and sharp. The aliens were not sending a message, not yet. There was no communication, no declaration of war, only silence, and a fleet on the way. General Mira Jackson stood in front of the large holographic display, staring at the swirling patterns of data. An ominous series of blinking lights filled the screen, the signature of unknown ships, crossing the outskirts of the solar system, heading straight for Earth. She had faced many difficult decisions before, but this one was different. It was unlike anything she had ever prepared for. Her heart raced, but she pushed it aside. The world needed her focus now, not her nerves. The orders were already being issued. The global defense network shifted into full alert as her team scrambled to respond. The first instinct was to communicate, but there was no reply from the alien fleet. A grim silence filled the room. She turned to her officers, her voice calm but urgent. "We don't know who or what we are facing, but we will be ready. Prepare the first wave of defenses. I want every satellite, every ship ready for anything." She had no idea how much time they had or how much force was on the way, but she had no choice but to act quickly. Earth's military might was strong, but this was a different kind of enemy. Their technology could be far beyond anything they had seen before. Dever Toms, a brilliant but eccentric scientist, was working furiously in a lab just outside the main command center. She had been following the strange readings from space herself, and her mind raced with possibilities. There was a new technology. She had been working on an experimental energy system that could potentially disrupt incoming alien technology. She had kept it classified, but now was the time to unveil it. She rushed to General Jackson's office, interrupting the meeting with a proposal. "This could be our edge," she said. "We may have a way to neutralize their ships, at least long enough for us to mount a response." Jackson looked at her for a long moment. The stakes were high. There was no room for error. "What do you need to make this happen?" Jackson asked. Tom smiled even as the weight of the moment settled over her. "I just need time and resources." The tension mounted as the alien fleet grew closer. Time was running out. Earth was on the precipice of something unknown, a war for survival, or perhaps worse, an invasion that could strip the planet of everything humanity had fought to build. Jackson's team worked tirelessly as the first alien ship came into view, the massive silhouette blocking out the stars as it approached Earth's defenses. The clock was ticking, and no one knew what the first strike would bring. One thing was certain: humanity had never faced anything like this, but they would not go down without a fight. The first blow came without warning, just as the fleet's shadows reached the edge of Earth's orbit. A massive alien ship fired a pulse weapon that rippled through space, sending shockwaves through Earth's defenses. The signal from the command center blared red as all systems failed one by one across the outer defense grid. A deafening silence followed, and then the world watched in horror as the first orbital defense station exploded in a blaze of fire and debris. The alien fleet moved with surgical precision, decimating Earth's outermost satellites and defense platforms like a swarm of predators, taking out their prey one by one without hesitation. General Jackson's voice rang out through the control room as chaos erupted around her. "We need to regroup now. Every available ship, every last fighter, prepare for combat." The calmness of her command contrasted the mounting panic in the room, but Jackson was used to the pressure. She had led troops in countless battles, but this was something far worse, an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. Captain Elias Cruz stood on the bridge of the nearest military vessel, watching the destruction unfold on the screens. His heart raced, but his mind remained focused. His crew was ready. They had trained for years for an enemy like this. But the reality of combat was different. The alien ships were like nothing Earth had ever faced. Their designs sleek and almost organic, with weapons that tore through Earth's armor like paper. His team of elite pilots had been preparing for this moment. Their modified ships were all they had, but they would fight to the last. He took a deep breath before turning to his squad. "We've got one shot at this. Let's show them what humanity can do." As the first wave of alien ships advanced towards Earth, the human fleet launched into the fray. The alien vessels were massive, towering over the human ships like giants. But humanity had one thing the invaders didn't understand: a relentless will to survive. Cruz and his team dove into the chaos, weaving between the alien ships, using the agility of their smaller vessels to outmaneuver the slower, larger aliens. They focused on hit-and-run tactics, striking with speed and precision before disappearing into the vastness of space. Despite the initial success, the battle was quickly turning in favor of the aliens. Their numbers were overwhelming, and the humans found themselves retreating back to the planet's atmosphere, trying to buy precious time as Earth's cities braced for the inevitable next wave. It was clear that Earth's defenses were not enough to hold back this superior force. General Jackson watched the ongoing battle from the command center. Each explosion in space was a reminder of the desperation they were facing. The alien fleet wasn't just here to invade, it was here to destroy. But even as the odds seemed insurmountable, something unexpected began to happen. The alien fleet faltered. They hesitated for a moment too long. Jackson noticed it, a hesitation that didn't come from a lack of power, but from a flaw in their strategy. They were too reliant on their overwhelming force. Their confidence was their weakness. There was a brief moment where the humans could strike back as the aliens regrouped, readying themselves for another assault. Jackson's mind raced. The window was small, but it was their chance, their last hope to turn the tide in this fight. "We take the fight to them," she ordered everyone who can move. "Get in position now." With Earth's forces rallying, Jackson knew that the time for fear was over. It was time to fight back or die trying. The humans' brief respite didn't last long as the alien fleet began to regroup. Their ships formed a near impenetrable wall, readying for another strike. The full power of their advanced weaponry was on display, each ship exuding an overwhelming presence that sent waves of tension through the remaining human forces. But General Jackson's instincts were sharp. She saw their flaw, and in that moment, she realized something crucial. While the aliens had superior firepower, they lacked adaptability. Their strategy was rigid, predictable. General Jackson quickly called a meeting with her senior officers, including Dr. Yara Tums, who had been working tirelessly on the new energy-based technology she believed could disrupt the alien fleet's power sources. "We know their strengths," Jackson said, "and now we know their weaknesses. It's time we used ours. Humans are adaptable. We can think on our feet, improvise, and outsmart them. Let's turn the tables." Dr. Tom smiled, but there was no time for celebration. She quickly outlined a daring plan to use their new energy weapon to disable key components of the alien fleet's propulsion systems. The theory was simple. By targeting the alien ship's energy cores with a pulse from the device, the weapon could disrupt their technology long enough to give the humans a fighting chance. Meanwhile, Captain Cruz and his squadron prepared for another round of hit-and-run tactics, but this time, their targets were far more specific. They would no longer aim at random vessels. They would focus on the weak points. Cruz's strategy was simple: use the environment around them to their advantage. With asteroids and debris fields nearby, they would lure the alien ships into treacherous areas where their size and lack of maneuverability would be their downfall. Cruz communicated his plan to the team, and despite the growing risk, his pilots were eager to strike back. Their ships were faster, nimbler, and they had one advantage the aliens didn't: Earth itself. The local gravity well, asteroid fields, and the home planet's atmosphere were all tools they could use to outmaneuver their opponents. It was time to use every inch of space to outsmart the invaders. The next assault began just as Jackson's forces prepared the weapon. Cruz and his pilots flew under the radar, using the rocky terrain of the asteroid field as cover. They'd set traps, detonating asteroids to create decoy explosions, drawing alien ships off course, and allowing the human fleet to attack from multiple angles. The result was chaotic. Alien ships collided with each other in their attempts to break free of the distractions, while the human fighters tore through their ranks. But the aliens were no fools. They quickly adapted, realizing they had underestimated their foes. A series of alien warships attempted to flank the humans, catching them off guard with concentrated firepower. For a brief moment, the humans were forced to retreat, but not without inflicting serious damage on the alien fleet. It was then that Dr. Tom's device came online. The hum of the energy pulse was heard across the control center as Jackson gave the order to fire. The pulse shot through space, directly targeting the alien fleet's propulsion cores. One by one, alien ships faltered, their engines sputtering and failing. The humans had created an opening, and now they had to seize it. The aliens were no longer as coordinated, their advanced technology in disarray. Kruz's team, emboldened by the success of the energy disruption, dove back into battle with renewed vigor. The tide was shifting. The aliens were no longer the unstoppable force they once seemed, but this was just the beginning. The humans had won a small victory, but the true test would be keeping the pressure on and pushing the invaders back for good. Jackson's voice rang out once more. Now we fight like we've never fought before. Finish this. The alien fleet, once a seemingly unstoppable juggernaut, was now thrown into disarray. Their sleek ships, powerful and imposing, were now crippled by the energy pulse from Dr. Tom's device. But the victory was not without its cost. The pulse had drained a significant portion of humanity's remaining resources, and they couldn't afford to waste a single second. General Jackson knew that this moment of confusion was their best chance to strike. There was no time to celebrate. The alien fleet, though disorganized, was not retreating. They were recalibrating, adapting. And that meant the humans had to act fast before the aliens regained their composure. Jackson's plan was daring. If they could exploit the aliens' momentary vulnerability and hit them where it hurt, they might be able to turn the tide for good. The only question was whether humanity had the strength and resolve to follow through. Captain Cruz and his squadron received their orders. Go straight for the heart of the alien fleet. Their objective was clear: strike the alien flagship and its command center. If they could disable the aliens' leadership, their entire force would be thrown into chaos. But that would require getting past the remaining alien warships, which were now more alert than ever. It was a suicide mission, but Cruz and his team knew there was no other option. As Cruz prepared for the mission, his mind raced through every possible scenario. The flagship was heavily protected by layers of defense, and the alien fleet would undoubtedly throw everything they had at any ships daring to approach. Yet this was their best chance to deliver a crippling blow. The team was ready, their hearts steeled for the dangerous path ahead. The human fighters shot through the debris field with ruthless precision, using every trick in the book to dodge the alien fire. Cruz led the charge, his ship weaving in and out of enemy ships with a fluidity that seemed almost impossible. The alien fleet, now fully aware of their presence, responded with overwhelming force. Laser beams and plasma bolts filled the vacuum of space, lighting up the sky like stars falling to Earth. But the humans had an advantage. They were unpredictable. Cruz's team moved like a well-oiled machine, working in unison, slipping past enemy fire, and striking back in sudden bursts. Each fighter had a specific role, each maneuver carefully planned but adaptable enough to handle any situation. They were using the aliens' overconfidence against them, playing a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Meanwhile, General Jackson coordinated the human fleet's movements from Earth's orbit, ensuring that every available ship was positioned to provide support. The humans had learned from the aliens' mistake. They had underestimated their opponent. Now, the tables were turned. Every human ship was filled with the same determination, fighting not just for survival, but for their world, their families, their future. As Cruz's team drew closer to the flagship, they encountered the most intense resistance yet. Alien warships tried to close off their path, but Cruz and his pilots outmaneuvered them, pushing deeper into the heart of the enemy's formation. The flagship loomed ahead, massive and imposing. It was their target, the key to everything. The human fighters launched their final attack. fast and furious. Kruz's ship broke through the last line of defense, and with a final, desperate push, he and his team unleashed everything they had on the flagship's vulnerable core. Explosions erupted as the massive vessel trembled. Kruz's ship shook from the impact, and for a moment, it seemed as if they had failed. But then, something extraordinary happened. The flagship's systems began to falter. First, it was a flicker, then a cascade of malfunctions. The alien fleet's coordination began to collapse as their flagship, the heart of their command, was crippled. The humans had done it. They had struck at the core of the invasion, sending ripples through the alien forces. But this was only one victory, and many more battles lay ahead. The mission wasn't over. It had only just begun. The alien flagship, now crippled, was a victory for humanity, but it came at a steep cost. The alien fleet had not yet been defeated, and the situation was far from over. The crippled flagship's collapse had caused a ripple effect through the enemy lines, but it had also stirred a new sense of desperation in the aliens. Their forces were disorganized, but they were far from done. If anything, they had only grown more dangerous. General Jackson watched the battle unfold from Earth's command center, her mind racing as the enemy regrouped. The alien fleet had suffered severe losses, but it wasn't going to back down. The remaining ships were now making tactical maneuvers, rallying behind their remaining warships in an attempt to crush humanity's forces in a final push. Jackson's pulse quickened as she issued new orders. There could be no hesitation. Humanity had bought itself some time, but this was only the calm before the storm. Captain Kruz's squadron, battered but unbroken, received new orders: intercept the remaining alien warships. Kruz's mind raced as his team prepared for another deadly confrontation. The aliens had lost their central command, but they still had powerful weapons and were not about to give up easily. The human fighters, though damaged from the last round of combat, had one advantage: resolve. They fought for their homes, their families, and every inch of Earth that was still untouched by the alien onslaught. Kruz's pilots prepared themselves for another suicide mission. This time, the stakes were even higher. They would be outnumbered, and the alien ships were fast adapting to human tactics. Crews had no illusions about the danger they faced, but this was their chance to break the back of the invasion once and for all. With Earth's forces providing support, the human pilots had one goal: to strike at the heart of the alien fleet once more. The space between Earth and the remaining alien warships was filled with blinding flashes of light as the two sides collided. Kruz's team led the charge, weaving through enemy fire with skill and agility. The alien ships were closing in, but the human pilots had learned to move with unpredictability. They used the debris field, asteroids, and even the gravity of Earth to give them an edge. They knew the terrain better than anyone, and they were going to use it. Explosions filled space as the two fleets engaged in a brutal aerial dogfight. Kruz's squadron was fast, dodging, and striking with relentless precision. Each pilot was pushing themselves beyond their limits. The alien ships, while powerful, lacked the flexibility and adaptability that the humans had mastered. The aliens attempted to counter with coordinated strikes, but Kruz and his team remained one step ahead, hitting hard and fast before disappearing into the chaos of the battlefield. Meanwhile, Dr. Toms and her team worked around the clock to enhance their energy disruption device. The first strike had been successful, but the aliens were starting to adapt. If they could refine the pulse technology and target the remaining alien command ships, they could disable more of the enemy fleet. Jackson knew this was their final chance. The clock was ticking, and there was no room for failure. As the battle continued, it became clear the humans were winning, but only just. The alien fleet was crumbling, their numbers dwindling with every passing hour. The tide was turning in humanity's favor, but the war was far from over. With the alien forces weakened and their leadership in disarray, the final push was within reach. But even in victory, the weight of the war was felt. The human forces had fought bravely, but the cost had been high. As Kruz's squadron prepared for another round of attacks, the question remained, could humanity hold on long enough to finish the fight? The battle for Earth was nearing its climax, but the future was still uncertain. The war was not yet won, but humanity would not surrender. The tide of battle had begun to turn in humanity's favor, but as the alien fleet reeled from the loss of its flagship, something far more troubling began to emerge. Captain Kruz's squadron had succeeded in crippling a number of key ships, but the aliens had not faltered in their resolve. In the midst of the chaos, it became clear that the alien fleet was not a monolith. There were factions within their ranks, some pushing for complete annihilation of Earth, others questioning the rationale of the invasion. The more Kruz and his team fought, the more they realized they were up against an enemy fractured by internal betrayal. It was Dr. Toms, working tirelessly in her lab, who uncovered the disturbing truth. Using intercepted alien communications, she pieced together a pattern of conflict among their commanders. There was a faction among the invaders, led by a high-ranking alien general who had opposed the invasion from the start. This faction believed that Earth's resources and strategic position were not worth the bloodshed, arguing that Earth could be integrated into the Galactic Empire through diplomacy, not conquest. However, their voices had been silenced by the more militant faction, who believed that humanity's existence was a threat to their future expansion. Dr. Toms relayed the discovery to General Jackson, who immediately recognized the implications. The true purpose of the invasion was not just to conquer Earth. It was to crush the resistance and pave the way for the Galactic Empire's expansion. But the real danger now was that the alien fleet, already weakened, was on the brink of civil war. The most dangerous element was the internal sabotage that could go unnoticed. The human forces could fight the aliens, but how would they respond to an enemy faction that had just as much reason to destroy their own fleet? General Jackson quickly convened a war council, bringing together her senior commanders and strategists. The moment of hesitation had presented an unexpected opportunity. Jackson made a bold decision. She would exploit the alien fleet's internal division, leveraging the factions against each other. But she needed more than just military might. She needed to send a message, one that would reach the alien commanders and leave them questioning their own cause. Meanwhile, Captain Kruz and his squadron were preparing for another offensive. Their target was clear: the alien command center, located aboard one of the remaining warships. However, the intelligence they had just received suggested a more complex web of factions, with key leaders who had secretly communicated with Earth's forces. Kruz knew they were walking into the heart of the enemy's power, but now, more than ever, they had to proceed carefully. It wasn't just about defeating the enemy. It was about ending the invasion without triggering further conflict among the alien ranks. As Kruz and his team boarded their ships, the mood was heavy. The stakes were higher than ever. They weren't just fighting to defend Earth. They were caught in the middle of a galactic struggle between ideologies. The alien fleet was splintering, but that also meant that their forces could turn on each other at any moment. The human pilots had become more than warriors. They were now diplomats in the heat of battle, tasked with exploiting an enemy's vulnerability. The final assault began with the flicker of engines, the hum of powerful engines cutting through space. Kruz and his pilots stormed the alien flagship, knowing that their fate, and the fate of Earth, was tied to the success of this mission. But in that final push, Kruz could feel it, the delicate balance between victory and annihilation. If they weren't careful, the fragile peace that had begun to form within the alien ranks could shatter. As the battle raged, it became clear this was no longer just about defeating the aliens. It was about steering them toward a new path, one where Earth could survive and thrive, rather than be consumed by endless war. The pressure was unimaginable, and yet the humans pressed on, with no idea of the lasting consequences their actions would have. In the midst of the chaos, one thing remained certain: humanity would not surrender. They had fought too long, sacrificed too much, and they would face whatever came next with unwavering resolve. The battle had escalated to a fever pitch, But Kruz and his squadron remained focused as they navigated the remnants of the alien fleet. The heart of the invasion was now within their grasp, the alien command center. A massive warship surrounded by smaller vessels, each one more dangerous than the last. The human pilots maneuvered with breathtaking precision, darting through fire and debris, their ships a blur of motion in the vast emptiness of space. Kruz's mind raced as he led the charge, trying to piece together the new information they had uncovered. The alien fleet was fractured, with two factions at war with each other. One faction, the Hardliners, wanted total conquest and saw humanity as a threat that must be wiped out completely. The other faction, the Moderates, had begun to question the logic of the invasion. They believed Earth could be assimilated peacefully, integrated into the Galactic Empire without the need for further destruction. The Hardliners were unaware of the Moderate faction's growing influence, and Kruz realized that it was their division, their conflict, that could be humanity's final advantage. As his squadron closed in on the command center, Kruz received a transmission from General Jackson. "We have to expose the fracture within their ranks," she said. "Target their leadership, disrupt their unity, make them doubt their mission." The goal had shifted. It wasn't just about destroying the command center anymore. It was about making the alien forces question their very purpose for being here. Captain Kruz relayed the orders to his team, urging them to focus on the alien command ship's central communication hub. If they could sever the alien leadership's ability to communicate, it would throw them into chaos, and that chaos would be the key to ending the invasion. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was humanity's best shot. The fleet of alien ships surrounding the command center responded with deadly force. Kruz and his pilots skillfully dodged their fire, engaging in a deadly dance of strikes and counterstrikes. The alien ships were relentless, their firepower terrifying. But Kruz knew that the humans had the advantage of adaptability. They were fighting with a purpose, with something to protect. That was something the invaders could never fully understand. As they neared the command center, the situation became even more critical. The alien fleet's Hardliners had mobilized every ship they had left, pouring all their resources into defending their flagship. But the Moderates were starting to hesitate. Kruz could feel it in the air. The moment of doubt was spreading through the alien forces. As their internal divisions began to leak through, small moments of disarray could be seen in their movements. A ship hesitated before firing. A fleet formation faltered. The human pilots capitalized on this, launching precise strikes on the weaker links of the alien defenses. With a final, powerful push, Kruz and his squadron arrived at the alien command ship. The communication hub, heavily shielded but vulnerable, was exposed. Kruz took a deep breath, then led the charge. His ship rocketed toward the center of the command ship, dodging laser blasts and plasma fire as the alien fleet closed in, determined to defend their leadership. He could see the tension in the alien ranks, the uncertainty beginning to spread as their communication channels were severed. For a brief moment, it felt as if time slowed. The alien fleet was teetering on the brink of collapse, their unity fracturing with every passing second. Captain Kruz's voice rang out through the squadron's comms. Target locked. The pilots followed suit, releasing a barrage of missiles and energy blasts directly into the communication hub. The massive warship shuddered violently, and for a split second, it appeared as if the entire command center would break apart. The alien fleet had lost contact with their leadership. The Hardliners were now blind, scrambling to make sense of the chaos, while the Moderates, still hesitant, saw their opportunity. The divide was now open. Kruz watched in real time as the battle shifted. Alien ships, once united in a single destructive purpose, began to turn on each other. The Moderates made their move, disrupting the Hardliners' formations. In that crucial moment, General Jackson's voice came through the comms. The fleet is breaking apart. Humanity's victory is within reach. But Kruz knew that even in victory, the consequences would be far-reaching. The war might be over, but the future of Earth and its place in the galaxy was still uncertain. The alien invasion had exposed a truth. Humanity was not alone in the universe. And though they had won the day, the question remained, what would this new era bring? The battle for Earth had ended, but the story of humanity's place among the stars had just begun. The alien fleet had fractured, its once unified force splintering into factions that now fought amongst themselves. The victory was tangible, but the consequences were far from clear. Captain Cruz and his squadron remained vigilant, watching as the alien ships began to drift apart, their once cohesive formation unraveling under the weight of internal strife. Some alien vessels, those of the moderate faction, sought to retreat, while the hardliners fought desperately, now leaderless and disorganized. The battlefield had shifted, and it was a testament to the unpredictability of war that humanity had emerged victorious, not just through military might, but by exploiting the cracks in the enemy's unity. On Earth, General Jackson stood in the command center, her gaze fixed on the monitors showing the fragmented alien fleet. The war was not over, but it had been won. For now, the human forces had done the unthinkable. They had held their ground, and in doing so, had forced the invaders into disarray. But as Jackson studied the unfolding chaos, a gnawing feeling of uncertainty lingered. "We've beaten them, but at what cost?" she muttered under her breath. Dr. Toms, who had been working tirelessly to refine the energy pulse weapon, entered the command center with a look of quiet triumph. "The pulse is still functional, General. We've won the battle, but if we don't move quickly, we could lose the upper hand. The alien moderates might seek peace, but the hardliners will be desperate. And they're dangerous." Jackson nodded, her mind processing the information. The moderates were already initiating tentative communications, seeking negotiations. The hardliners, on the other hand, were dangerous in their desperation, and if they were left unchecked, they could regroup and try to strike back with renewed force. The next steps would be crucial in securing humanity's future. "We can't afford to let the hardliners regroup," Jackson said decisively. "We need to push them into retreat. Make them believe that any attempt to continue the fight would be a lost cause." Jackson's voice was filled with authority, but even she knew that peace would not come easily. The galaxy was a vast, unknown place, and the humans had only just begun to scratch the surface of what lay beyond. The alien fleet had not been fully defeated, only fragmented. The hardliners might retreat for now, but there was always the possibility of reinforcements from the depths of space. As Cruz and his squadron began the final stages of the operation, pushing the alien hardliners into retreat, the human forces rallied to provide support. The Earth-based fleet, bolstered by the victory, had more than enough firepower to finish the job. With the help of the alien moderates, who were now more inclined toward diplomacy, the hardliners found themselves cornered. Captain Cruz, now more determined than ever, watched as the final alien ships fled toward the fringes of the solar system. It wasn't a total victory. They had been forced to use every ounce of strength and ingenuity. But the threat had been contained for the moment. The Earth had survived. Humanity had survived. However, as the last alien vessels disappeared into the black void, General Jackson felt a sense of solemnity. This victory, while significant, was only the beginning of a new chapter. The galactic stage had been set, and humanity was no longer a solitary speck in the vastness of space. The invasion had been repelled, but the question now was, what would humanity's future be among the stars? "Prepare for contact," Jackson ordered, her voice steady. "We've survived, but we need to understand what comes next. This is only the beginning." The alien fleet had been repelled, but humanity's real journey had just begun. What awaited them beyond the stars was unknown, but they would face it together, stronger, wiser, and united. And one thing was certain: humanity would never stop fighting for its place in the universe.